It's just been great to hear all the stories that are coming out. There's some great videos, and actually Justin touched on pollinators with his landowner in his presentation. So we're going to kind of dive into that pollinator side of things here a little bit. And yeah, I won't take too long, but if I go over, please give me the hook. Tell me, the little flag. Anyway, so this is the Claringbould ALUS Alternative Land Use Services Pollinator Project. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background on our watershed district. So we are in eastern Manitoba, Seine Roseau Watershed District. We're made up of 16 municipal partners, and the RM of Morris, if you're listening, anytime you can join us. We'd love to have you. So just putting in a plug. Yeah, the only piece that's outstanding right now is the RM of Morris, so we'd love it if they would participate. But as a whole, we're split up into sub-watershed districts, all the way up from sub-district 9. That's where Colin, actually, he's just north of that with his presentation on the Fish Creek. So we do kind of share a watershed boundary there. And then all the way with Steinbach, it's the Manning Canal, and then down farther south with the Roseau watershed, which we share with the watershed district in America. So I see Tracy's going to be presenting too, so that'll be good. It's always good to see our partners. So here we are in southeastern Manitoba, and some of the main goals that we have on the watershed perspective, and this was actually addressed by Nicole Armstrong already today on the watershed district program. So we're right in line with that. Our integrated watershed management goals are source water protection, riparian and aquatic ecosystem protection, surface water quality protection, surface water management, and watershed awareness. So we make those plans with public meetings, and out of that comes the work plan for what we want to do from year to year and over the next 10 years. With that being said, we've been and the benefits of pollinators on farmland and how possibly we can incorporate pollinators into our programming of ecological goods and services on the landscape. So there has been a study. There's not too much studying that's been going on with farmyards with pollinators, but there's one down in Iowa State that I thought had some really neat results that I just wanted to showcase. So they did their pollinator planting a little bit different than we did. So they did pollinator strips in the middle of soybean fields. So it's kind of interesting. And they found that by adding 10% of their field, putting it into pollinator strips, of just 15 feet by 30 foot strips across a prairie classes, they had 44% reduction in water runoff, 95% reduction in soil loss, 90% reduction in phosphorus runoff, 84% reduction in nitrate runoff as well, and they had no difference in their yield, their weed disease, and the reduced emissions of the gases, especially the oxide. So that kind of says placed in ecological goods and services. I'll talk about the alternative land use service that we already have running with Roseau and Canada as our two main partners on that program. We're able to pay a landowner that wants to land out of production, so not the best land, but the lands that they have trouble getting yields on most years, and other years it's a bumper crop, but it doesn't really cover the inputs for the loss on those other years where it's not high. On class 1 to 3 lands, we actually pay up to $100 an acre, and it's based on 3% of the assessed value of the land. And then we will have a different range, so $30 an acre for class 4 land, based on 3% land assessment, and then class 5 land, we're at a base rate of $15 an acre at annual payments. And we don't really go much lower than the 15. So and that's kind of, you're looking more at your buffers around your wetlands with those classes. But we know that all this agricultural land is still usable and farmable, and we don't want the producer to stop farming. We just want to add some beneficial projects to the land that provide ecological services, and then try to pay the landowner back for that. So our project location is actually just south of Ridgeville. And if you kind of think about Emerson and Letellier on the Red River, just a little bit above Emerson, and then probably like 15 miles east, and you'll get to the Claringbould project, and it's right on the main drain. It's actually what it's called. So it's in the main drain watershed, which flows into the Roseau River at Dominion City, and then a quick jaunt over to the Red. So definitely right in the basin area, right close to the border too. And our project site, it's a 40-acre field located along the southwest border of the field, and there is a drain that runs along the southwest corner. So that's often very wet and low-lying. And there's a couple of field areas within the field that are also low-lying. So it's generally not the class 1 and 2 agricultural land that we're seeing around it, and it is more of a class 3 cultivated land, but it's not ideal for cultivation. So Neil was having a lot of trouble. He's like, I didn't really like cultivating it, and he kind of got fed up and said, like, Kate, I want to just put this into forages. So we took a look at the landscape, definitely came out, and we saw definitely when it was trying to be cultivated, it definitely wasn't having improvements. We did the DEM, digital elevation model, and you can see that the red is the high area and the green to white is the lower lying land. So yeah, definitely a transition zone, kind of like away from the higher class ag land and into more of the low lying perennial, more suitable type grasses. And yeah, now you can see our ortho photo as well from the drone. So in 2020, Neil came to us and we talked about doing the project, and he converted his cultivated land to perennial land, and he planted 6 species originally on the 40 acres, and he fenced off the area to rotationally graze it just once a year to remove that phosphorus. And that's a requirement of our alternative land use service program. So if you're fencing off an area, you have to remove the phosphorus, and you can either bale it or flash graze it. So he chose to flash graze it, and he's also a fairly new but innovative regenerative farmer. So he's really looking at ways to improve the regeneration of his soil. And that total project cost $18,000, and that was including the pollinators, which were about $3,500, which came out to, or roughly $87 an acre. So kind of talking about the pollinator edition, yeah, so there was a drought, as we all know, and Neil wanted to reseed because he didn't really get great establishment, and he asked if he could add a pollinator to the mix. And so luckily, we're actually involved with the Living Labs Eastern Prairie program with Agriculture Canada. And so May Elsinger has been just influential at helping work with Neil and kind of bring about the seed mix that has a really good diversity of pollinators with the grasses. And also, so she really helped with that part of it. And when we're looking at the price of it, pollinators, anytime you add pollinators, it seems like the cost doubles or triples. And when we were looking through it, we kind of thought, okay, well, it's an awesome seed mix, and even if we removed 1 or 2 of the seeds, we'd probably half our cost, because some of those seeds are really expensive, and so kind of looking at that. But for a pilot project, we just really wanted to see what would establish and what's going on the best, and to get a lot of that benefit out of the habitat and biodiversity. So speaking of that, biodiversity, the lack of biodiversity is actually the most endangered planetary boundary right now. So out of the 9 planetary boundaries, biodiversity is actually really big. And I'm going to end it on that note, and maybe there's a time for questions. I don't know if we have, but that's our pilot program. And from this pollinator project, we're looking to develop a soil health program that includes cover cropping and pollinator projects and seed funding for up to 50% of our producers. So thank you.